What's up, my friends? I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. We are in a deep dive into this passage, Matthew 15, 21 through 28. It's a tricky passage because it looks like Jesus is just blowing off this foreigner lady who needs his help. But then when he finally does talk to her, it looks like he's pretty harsh with her. We're trying to figure out why the tone, what is being accomplished here? Why is Matthew even including this in his document? Doesn't it make Jesus look bad? And we're about, halfway-ish through our process of trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. I have no idea where we're resuming because I recorded this whole thing at once. So I'm going to have Jeff play some music and then we're just going to pick it up wherever we left off yesterday. So, okay, for me, after the first time I really sat and thought about this and broke it down, it cut through some of that, Jesus, what are you doing impulse that I felt. And if I really think about the exchange, I feel a little bit better about it, but there's a lot to break down here, and I'm not even sure where to start, so I'm just going to pick things, make some observations, and we'll see if we can make sense of this. So we've already acknowledged this motif of Jesus having a soft spot for the Gentiles and them being able to identify him. Further, we've acknowledged the repetition of this motif where women in the Gospels seem to identify Jesus and be willing to take that desperate step to go and get his attention. But third, I think there's something that's sitting in plain sight here that needs to be acknowledged as well, and that's that, again, Jesus praises an outsider for their faith. He did the exact same thing, again, I'm turning pages, and I don't know why, in Matthew chapter 8, when he says, I tell you the truth, I've not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and west and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. There's this idea throughout the whole gospel, and John the Baptist hits on it as well, that just saying we have Abraham as our father is not what makes you a part of the kingdom. It's not what really makes you a part of this family of faith that God is building through Jesus, and that the actual family of faith will not be made up of self-righteous people who created extra biblical laws and traditions that they engage in ruthless accountability with each other over, but rather this actual family of faith is going to be, well, just that, faith. It's going to be people who have embraced and been changed by the values of the kingdom. It's going to be people who give away and reflect those values of the kingdom. It's going to be people who bend the knee to the king. I mean, what is a kingdom? It's the subjects of the king. And so that which makes someone a subject of this kind of a king is to bend the knee to that kind of a king, which this lady is doing figuratively and literally. So in addition to the still developing motif of Jesus dealing with Gentiles and women being bold and insistent in pursuing Jesus when they see who he is in the Gospels, we also add to it this much more theologically weighty motif, that of the new family of faith. And this new family of faith is filled with people who have faith. And this family is filled with weird-looking people. If you were to build a religion and draw the circle around the demographic you would expect to have in that religion, it would not look like what you're getting here at all. The kingdom is trippy. It apparently completely rejects the demographic lumping that we are accustomed to at any age in any culture, and instead people with serious problems, people who are a part of seriously the wrong group depending on who you're talking to, people who talk the wrong way and look the wrong way and are into the wrong kind of stuff, they end up being in the kingdom. And the people who believe they have eyes wide open and see everything for exactly how it is, the ones who believe that they see everything so clearly and are most obviously in, are maybe actually not. So in a not so subtle way, this uncomfortable interaction between these two parties further advances this theme of the true people of God, who are my mother, my brother, my sisters, as being the people who believe in Jesus, and in this case, in every way, the people who assume a right posture before the king. She didn't get everything about theology. She didn't get everything about exactly who Jesus was across the board, but she recognized his authority and his goodness and his power, and she responded accordingly, something much better educated people were not able to get right. So then back to the bajillion-dollar question, though, what actually happened in this exchange that gets us to this point? A couple of different possibilities. One, Jesus was tired and cranky, and he was just in a foul mood, and he was being a jerk. And this lady came along and was pestering him. And I'm like, just not now. My cousin got beheaded and I've been walking forever and my feet hurt and I'm trying to have a corporate retreat and you're ruining it. I'm always healing and stuff. And I just can't today. And then eventually she got pushy and he softened and was like, okie dokie. I'll remember interpretive principle number 1, or maybe we count it as interpretive principle number 2 of the Bible, is interpret the less clear in light of the more clear. Do we see those kind of off days from Jesus anywhere else? No, I don't think we do. Do we see incredible shrewdness and precision from Jesus in other places, where he chooses his words and his interaction style in a way that is designed to teach? Oh, well, yeah, we do. I think of Matthew 19 here in a couple chapters where he has interaction with the rich young ruler. I think of some of the clever rhetorical questions that he bounces back at people to make them think about stuff. Yeah, that we see. Him just being a jerk for a while, we don't see. So is it possible that he was being a jerk and Matthew was just writing down like, yeah, he was just a jerk that day? I mean, I guess so. But I think whether we're a person of faith or not faith, the better read within the boundaries of the text and the assumptions that we draw from the context is that instead of some sort of evil mind control or him being a jerk, what we're actually getting here is some sort of very clever turn of a phrase to navigate this exchange in a way that makes this larger point for his disciples. I don't even know if it's for the lady, in such a way that it fulfills the training they're receiving on this corporate retreat road trip that they're taking up north into Gentile territory. If that's the case, it maybe goes something like this. She comes along and says, "Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demonic possession." And Jesus is like, okay, well, I'm going to heal that kid. This is interesting. And here's how I'm going to do it. So he strolls along quietly, letting the disciples, who he's trying to very intentionally train up during this time, he's going to let them figure it out. What are they going to do? Jesus doesn't tip his hand at all, one way or the other. And the disciples do what they did when the kids were coming up to Jesus and interrupting their important religious time. And they're like, I got to get these kids out of here. And Jesus is like, quit being stupid. The kids stay. In fact, the kid thing is great. And there's something about the heart of a kid that gets it in ways that you guys aren't getting it right now. Is it possible that we're seeing another such teachable moment from Jesus? It might be. So the disciples tip their hand. They're like, she just needs to go away. But Jesus answers them, well, I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. Now, clearly that is not his final answer. We already know, again, from Matthew 8, that he has an interest in people who aren't Jewish. And also, he's not in Israel right now. And also, he's going to do a whole bunch more stuff and say a whole bunch more stuff that indicates that this thing is for everybody and was always ultimately intended for everybody. And Jesus is very familiar with the Abrahamic covenant, in which God tells Abraham that he and his descendants are going to be a blessing to all the nations. So I can't believe that Jesus is making an ultimate and final statement here that, no, I'm really only here for this one thing. I'm not really interested in anything beyond that. Instead, it looks like he's repeating an expectation back at them. Now, this sounds a little bit like Matthew chapter 10, that being the missional discourse, where right off the bat, he tells the very same disciples, don't go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans, go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. Oh, it's almost the exact same phraseology. But then the rest of Matthew 10 goes on to, one, affirm the idea of being shrewd and innocent, which I think is the exact techniques he's employing here to navigate this conversation. But two, Jesus' words in the missional discourse of Matthew chapter 10 indicate that these guys are headed for a much broader audience. This thing is going to go global. Everything about the context there at the beginning of chapter 10 indicates that for now, you guys are going to be in the phase of going just to the lost sheep of Israel. But part 2 and part 3 of the missional discourse give all kinds of verbal cues that this is going to go much further than that. Is Jesus then, by drawing on that exact same phraseology he used at the beginning of chapter 10, suggesting to them, like, what do you think, guys? Is it time to shift into the phase 2 that we had talked about? And while they're still thinking about what Jesus meant by that answer, the woman's like, yeah, whatever, but my kid's demon-possessed and her life is being ruined. So at any rate, I'm sure all of that theology is very important, but she just begs, help me. And we're still not done. Increasingly, I'm coming to view this passage as the halfway point of the book of Matthew. Now, the chapters and verses and stuff, I know you're probably doing math on like 28 chapters. We're partway through 15. Is this really halfway? All of that stuff is after the fact. And so I don't know word count if this puts us at the halfway point or not, but it seems like this departure from Jewish territory, this trip up north, and particularly this exchange with this lady is drawing on a whole bunch of the themes we've been poking at for a while, and I just need more time to unpack that with you. So we're going to hit pause there and rejoin all of this tomorrow. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.